What if I told you that Hamilton and Leclerc were shocked by the Ferrari SF26? Not because of disappointment, but because the data was so good that they couldn't believe it. What did Hamilton see in the simulator that left even the engineers speechless? It was 9:47 in the morning when Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton entered a restricted room inside Ferrari's technical department in Maranello. In front of them, a 3-meter-wide screen projected real-time data from the first firing of SF26, known internally as Project 678. There were no media outlets, no promotional cameras. Only key engineers, the 2 starting drivers, and an atmosphere full of technical tension. The most shocking thing happened 40 minutes later, when the simulator data with fast lap was loaded. In equal conditions with standard temperature and established downforce, Lewis Hamilton had been half a second faster than Charles Leclerc in Montmello. Half a second. In a controlled environment. Without slipstreams. No traffic. A difference so clear that it could not be attributed to piloting errors or differences in style. It was an SF26 optimization that only one of the 2 had unlocked. Ferrari had not fully calibrated an average aerodynamic window that emerged between 240 and 270 km per hour, but Hamilton, with a sensitivity that he has honed over 2 decades, felt that pressure band and knew how to exploit it. It reduced the entry radius in turns 3 and 9 of the simulator, braked about 8 meters later in turn 5, and did not suffer from blocking or loss of traction in a slow corner. A level of integration between pilot and machine that even left the engineers speechless. Leclerc, upon seeing that data, was not frustrated. He stayed watching. He then asked to repeat Hamilton's lap in slow motion. He studied the inputs. He asked to superimpose his own data with that of the British. During this analysis, those responsible for the simulator reported an unprecedented fact. Leclerc was not looking to gain time, he was looking to understand how a driver new to Ferrari had connected so quickly with the car. It was then that a phrase emerged among the engineers that was marked on the blackboard in the simulation area. We have not just designed a competitive car. We have designed a car that responds when they understand it. That day, no races were won. No official record was broken. But deep in Maranello, Hamilton and Leclerc understood that 2026 might not be another season of waiting. It could be the year where everything finally falls into place. If there is something that distinguishes the historical champions of Formula One, it is their ability to feel the car in a way that engineers can barely explain with numbers. Lewis Hamilton did not need weeks to adapt to the Maranello environment, nor months to understand the SF26. Hours were enough. In the simulator, with just 3 laps completed, he was already giving precise instructions on the pressure of the rear axle and mixed traction phases. Details that other drivers only perceive after several race weekends. But Hamilton is not other drivers. The big difference emerged when comparing how each driver interpreted the car's behavior in a medium-speed corner. The SF26, with less aggressive aerodynamics than McLaren's MCL39 but with a more coherent interaction between flat bottom and diffuser, required a specific technique, attacking the corner without compromising the airflow under the car. Hamilton understood it immediately. He minimally reduced his steering angle during entry, loaded the brake more in the initial phase, and adjusted the lift before the apex to keep the ground suction channel stable. The result? Cleaner starts, fewer corrections, and traction that the SF25 has never been able to offer. All this under identical simulation conditions, but what was truly amazing was not its speed. It was his ability to communicate what he felt. In less than 15 minutes, Hamilton generated a verbal report so specific that the technical team changed the simulator settings to continue testing exclusively with his setup. He indicated that the aerodynamic transfer zone, the one in which the car goes from being compressed to floating subtly in the change of plane, could be used to its advantage if the entry was made with a certain type of directional latency. An expression so technical that the engineers themselves asked me to repeat it twice. The surprise was absolute. He wasn't just a pilot interpreting data. It was a driver teaching the team how his car should behave to go beyond the simulations. Hamilton not only adjusted his driving, redrawn the SF26 response curves to work with it, as if the car needed someone who knew how to listen to it. When he finished his round, he did so with his helmet on. He got up, walked to the monitor and said, "This car still doesn't know how good it is. That changes absolutely everything." When the engine was fired on the full dyno, the sound confirmed what the data already hinted at. It wasn't the classic roar, nor the dominant electric hum of recent hybrids. It was a disturbing combination of both. A deeper, denser resonance, as if the engine worked at a different frequency than the rest of the grille. Veteran engineers described it in one word: unnatural. That day, Hamilton and Leclerc didn't just see numbers. They saw a concept that could change the balance of power. An engine that did not depend on tricks, nor extreme maps, nor fragile solutions. An engine built to withstand a full season's war. Ferrari had not opted for steel to be different. He had opted for steel to be ruthless. When Ferrari arrived at the preseason test in Barcelona, it did so with a strategy that upset the entire paddock. While McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull showed advanced versions of their cars, the Scuderia appeared with a basic configuration, a version that they internally called Speca. But that simplicity was deceptive. Behind each decision there was a deliberate strategy loaded with lessons from the past. Ferrari decided not to go out on the track on the first day. While all the teams were racking up kilometers under stopwatch pressure, in Maranello they were still correlating wind tunnel data with real-time CFD simulations. The objective was only one: to avoid repeating the technical disaster of the SF25, a car that promised performance on paper but failed by not matching the reality of the track. That lesson, painful and costly, led them to take a radical stance, not to impress but to validate. When they finally went out on the second day, the car they put on the track was not even remotely the final version. The flat bottom was literally flat, with no aggressive channeling or variable profiles. The rear wing was calibrated to generate downforce, not to achieve top speed. Even the installed sensors were not for performance, but for structural reading. Ferrari wasn't looking for headlines. I was looking for certainties. And the most interesting thing was that, even with a limited car, the times were not alarming. In fact, the SF26 Spec A maintained the pace of the upper half of the table, without deploying maximum power or using soft compounds. Leclerc and Hamilton completed race simulations with engine maps in conservation mode, and yet the car showed stability, perfectly contained tire degradation, and above all, predictability. In a sport where unpredictability kills development, that was a gem. There was no euphoria in the Ferrari pit. There was concentration. Each lap was followed by short but intense meetings between drivers and engineers. Hamilton focused on the energy delivery of the hybrid unit, comparing the behavior of the ERS in mixed acceleration phases. Leclerc, for his part, insisted on front axle feedback under medium aerodynamic load. They both knew they were developing a car, not evaluating its final speed. And that requires another mentality. Loic Serra, the chassis technical director, was clear in his previous statements. Ferrari was not just there to test the car. I was there to test the philosophy behind the car. Because the SF26 is not a simple machine. It is a concept that has to be verified layer by layer. If the chassis responded as in the simulator, if the aerodynamics did not collapse in fast corners, if the thermal management of the brakes was as stable as in Fiorano, then everything that came after made sense. And that validation happened. The team confirmed that the correlations worked, that what they had designed in the laboratory was reflected on the track. From there, what comes is a controlled deployment of evolution. The SF26 shown in Barcelona is not the car that will race in Bahrain or Imola. It's just the skeleton. What matters is yet to come. New floor specification, active diffusers within what is permitted, new, more closed cooling inlets to gain aerodynamic efficiency, and above all, Spec B, which represents Ferrari's true strategic coup for the start of the championship. Many rivals let themselves be carried away by the times. But Ferrari stuck to the data. And the data for now proves them right. Because the real battle is not won on the first day of testing. It is won when that first day validates the invisible work of an entire winter. What happened in Maranello during the first days of January 2026 was not simply the birth of a new car. It was the genesis of a narrative that could define an era. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton did not leave that room with absolute certainties, but they did leave with something much more powerful. The conviction that Ferrari has built a base with true potential to fight for everything. And that conviction did not come from a brilliant presentation or hopeful words. It emerged from data, of real sensations, from the way the SF26 responded to each adjustment, to each command, to each lap launched in the simulator and on the track. It arose from the way in which Hamilton understood the car as if he had developed it himself, and from the exact moment in which Leclerc understood that this immediate connection with the machine was not magic, but the result of something well built from the ground up. The combination of a revolutionary thermal architecture, a predictable chassis, a patient validation philosophy, and a technically complementary pair of drivers is a recipe that Ferrari has not had for more than a decade. And perhaps, for the first time in many years, it is not about waiting for a miracle. It's about executing a plan, step by step, without burning stages. The real challenge will come when that car faces pressure. when decisions have to be made in real time, when evolution is not a promise but a necessity. And at that moment, what we saw in Barcelona and what began in Maranello could become the beginning of a new cycle. Because if the SF26 manages to transfer what it promises in data to race results, we won't just be talking about a competitive season. We will be facing the resurgence of a legend. And that legend, for the first time in a long time, does not seem like a romantic dream, but rather a real technical and sporting possibility. Leave me your opinion in the comments what you think about all this.